the Lobato trial is a very interesting case because Colorado is a wealthy state, but it spends less than the national average on education and has huge disparities in spending, from about $6,800 to about $25,000 per pupil across the district. So it's a case where the issues of equity are front and center. It's a state that has failed to close the achievement gap and failed to make the investments in closing the achievement gap. And so I was asked to come and really talk about what would be important to do in enabling the state to meet the new Common Core standards in order to more effectively address the achievement gap that exists. I will be asked to talk about teacher quality and how do we help teachers become effective and successful in the classroom. What is the role of appropriate teacher evaluation in that, which is substantially around observations of classroom practice and giving teachers feedback to enable them to improve. We'll talk about issues of how to organize schools so that they support high quality teaching and teachers have the collaboration time that they need, as well as students having the personalized attention that they need. We'll talk about what it takes to meet the new high standards, what those standards consist of, and what kind of investments are needed to allow people to have the materials that they need to reach the standards, curriculum resources, training and professional development, supports for students so that the goal of the standards could actually be achieved. There's a lot of evidence in many, many studies around the country, some of which I've done and other people have as well, that money does make a difference when it's spent properly, when it's spent on the things that matter most. We have that evidence here in Colorado, in fact, from some analyses that we've done. So we have to obviously provide that evidence. We also have to give examples of places where the investments have been made, and you've seen steep increases in achievement and a reduction of the achievement gap. New Jersey is one such state that will be brought up in the trial, where they made a huge investment in school finance reform in 1998. There's a lot of debate about does class size make a difference, and some people are looking at studies where they ask the question, does it make a big difference in achievement if you move from 24 to 23 students? The answer is no, it doesn't make a huge difference at that level, but it does, the research shows us, make a very big difference if you move from 40 students to 20 or from 25 to 15. And research summaries have shown in reviews of 70 plus studies that smaller class sizes below a threshold, usually people put the threshold at somewhere around 19 or 18, do make a big difference in achievement. They make a bigger difference at the elementary grades level. There's clearly a lot of evidence at the elementary grades level about that, and it makes a substantial difference for disadvantaged students and minority students who have been lower achieving in the past. The big Tennessee STAR study is the one that everyone talks about because it's the only randomized trial, teachers and students randomized to two different class sizes. 7,000 kids, 300 classrooms. They followed kids for 4 years from K through 3, and then they followed them all the way up to 8th grade. And they found in that study that there was a very large, very significant effect on student achievement in the K through 3 classrooms. It didn't matter whether there was a teacher's aide present or not, the effect was the same. And that effect continued as the kids went up through the grades, and they had followed them at least through 8th grade at the last published study. They also found that there were lower levels of grade retention and lower levels of special education placement. So while class size has some cost, it also has some savings associated with it because those are very expensive alternatives. Putting a kid through school another year again and putting them in special education. More than that, now the class sizes they were looking at were class sizes of 13 to 17 versus class sizes of 22 to 26. Other states have followed up and tried to implement reforms based on that study. Indiana did something, in Wisconsin they did a project, in Burke County, North Carolina. And in all those cases, they reduced class size to about 15 in those early grades, K through 3, and got very strong, significant effects on reading scores and math scores, just as the Tennessee study had done.
Now, as we talk about differentiated learning and kids at different levels, how does class size help that?
Well, clearly, if you have fewer kids, if you have the tools and the skills, you can differentiate more. You can spend more time individualizing for students who have greater needs, and you can also figure out how to organize kids who are advanced to go further. So individualization is obviously much supported by a smaller class size. Teachers and educators are not just educators of children, but they're educators of the public as well. And this is a time when there's a huge need to educate the public about the value of public education, about what the right kinds of reforms are to support and strengthen public education, about what it takes to educate kids well, what kinds of standards and assessments we really need, what kind of investments we really need, what the role of teachers can be in that process. So I would just encourage educators to speak up, to be heard, to educate the public, to see that as part of your role, and to remember that, you know, every time somebody stands up for an idea, reaches out and goes beyond and helps someone in need, as Kennedy said, there's a tiny ripple of hope created, and that ripple of hope can become really an ocean of change if people will really take heart and take charge.